So have you ever had to call 911? No, 911? So many ones. Hello everyone. So thanks again for joining me for this debut episode. We're talking again about the 411 on the 911. And I do want to mention before we get started that today is a very special day. We're celebrating Juneteenth, and that is the day that not that slaves were freed on paper, but that the 2 years that happened at least before it got to Texas and all the slaves were truly freed, as they should be, and I want to mention that, even though that's not our topic for today, since it's going up today. I will put some information in the description down below, and just in case you don't know what it is, or if you want to celebrate with me, you'll have it. I don't think I've ever had to call 911, or if I did, I thoroughly suppressed it in my mind, which would be understandable because it's kind of dramatic for everybody involved. It means there's an accident, an emergency situation that involves a lot more than we consider. So why do we have this invention? Because I don't know about you, but what I have found is that, I say this in the sweetest way, people are really not that proactive. You know, I'm not going to get into politics, but the government and people at large and the school system sometimes, and you know, your friend groups when they play their, you know, D&D games, sometimes they're just not proactive, and they end up with a problem that causes a big issue, and then they've got to solve it, and they come up with a great solution. I'm all for the great solution, but I'm all for being a little more proactive about it. So this is how having a 3-digit way to communicate an emergency to responders began. We're going to go way back to the Titanic, 1912. So we're in the Titanic time period. We were on the ship. It's sinking. People are radioing. The communications aren't going through. There was a way to call for police or people of order, such as policemen and active duty members of some sort, but it was a long number. You had to know it. You had to be able to remember it right on the spot, and it had to go through. And the other person had to answer. I mean, what if they're in the bathroom? It's not like it was 12 people just all sitting and staring at a phone, because this was the unsinkable ship. You know, this was unprecedented, and so that is what kind of kicked off the idea of, hey, 1,500 lives could have maybe been saved if we had just simply had this protocol in motion. So that's really the event that kicked it off. And that's why the first time we see the 3 digits for an emergency code come up in England. In 1964, the English used 999. For some reason, in 64 in the Harlem area, there became a rampage of crime. Just people went mad. Why? You know as well as I do. I have no idea. And so, of course, you know, 9 calls are going up and up and up. And there was this girl, her name was Kitty, and she was getting off her shift at a local convenience store. And it was about 3 a.m, but you know, that was her. Maybe she was in school and that was her graveyard shift. I don't know. But she packed herself up and did her normal return to home. She lived in Kew Gardens, which was a pretty open community as to lifestyle choices, and it was pretty accepting, and that's why she and her girlfriend decided to live there. Now, unfortunately, this very night would not be like the other nights, and she would be walking towards her door and realized she had been being followed and suddenly attacked. She was stabbed. She screamed as much as she could, blood-curdling scream to get the neighbors' attention, etc. But then upon second stabbing, her lung collapsed, so she was unable then to continue speaking. And I guess this wasn't completely out of the ordinary because, like I said, crime was like on this high at this time. But neighbors really did kind of stick together in a way that I find really wonderful, and community just made sure everybody was okay. So here's Kitty, and she's laying on the ground. Now imagine this. There's a street, there's your house, there's your car, there's you in the middle of the street, hoping nobody drives by or over you. You've been stabbed twice, and then a neighbor screams,
don't touch that girl, like, leave her alone.
And it scares her attacker, and so the attacker runs away, and she's like, okay, I can halfway not breathe, and I don't know how to move. I can't scream for help. What do I do? And so in the meantime, a neighbor heard something or just was kind of curious, and she decides she's going to call 999, right? So this becomes the reason why 999 changes. It's not a guarantee, not at all a guarantee, but a possibility that if 999 had been already switched to 911, Kitty might still be alive today, or have lived out a nice, lovely life with hopefully a fixed up lung and, aside from the traumatic event. The neighbor goes in the house, she calls 999, and it takes so long for all of the departments that we take for granted to get together that unfortunately they don't get to Kitty in time. And so the neighbors are all out there trying to help her, and basically she passes away in their arms, and it's a very sad scene. But for some reason, again, this is like, why do things go viral? Don't even ask that question. Why this story went viral over this kind of thing happening over and over again, I don't know. But I'm glad it did, because it brought awareness to the fact that you've got the police department, you've got the fire department, you've got the EMTs, so you've got medical, you've got natural disaster, you've got law and order, and you need to be able to contact all of these basically at once. Or contact someone who has the ability to do that and find out, like, instead of saying, hey, I have an emergency, the police officer shows up and says, okay, there's a fire, let's call the fire department. Instead, the dispatcher can say, okay, there's a fire, I will send a fire truck. And so that's going to cut out so much time. Now, I know you're thinking, why in the world does it take extra time to press a button 3 times? In today's world, that's probably faster. With our smartphones, boop, 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 ring, 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 done. Back then, they only had access, if they even had access to a phone, they only had access to a rotary phone. A rotary phone was based on the idea of rotary as in something round or circular, okay? Pick up the phone. You might have seen one at an internship at an office, but where you pick up the phone and it actually has a headset. None of these gaming headsets. No. We're talking old school, okay? So with the rotary phone, the problem with 999 was seriously just the time it took for a person in distress to dial it. Because what happens is they thought, if it got really musty, or you had no power, your candles went out, you gouged your eyes out, somebody else did it, you were blindfolded, let's not even go into how many reasons you could not see the phone properly, but you could feel that little dip where it was past the 1 and then where the 9 was. So you could feel that, and you would push it in, pull it around past that 1, deek, and then you would press 9 again. It would go all the way around, come back again. And a third time, while the person's laying there dying, you take the 9 and you pull it all the way around. Ding. And then you wait for it to go back again. And so, while this is not necessarily the reason for Kitty's unfortunate death, it certainly could have helped to have time response be faster. So, in the US, they decided, hey, let's do our own version, but let's make it 911. They picked 911 in part because it had never been used as a service code or an area code. I'm over here wondering why it wasn't 111, but when you think about it, maybe a child playing with the phone could have just dialed 111, but I don't know. And this is where AT&T comes in. Now, this video is not sponsored, but hey, AT&T, if you're out there, I'm here, and I'll talk about you all day long. I'll try all your products. I'll buy them myself. You know, just putting it out in the world. Just think. Have your people get to my people, okay? So AT&T was the one that announced that 911 was officially going to be established because versus 999, it was easy to remember, it was quick to reference, and it was faster and easier to dial, which is really smart. The fun fact here is I'm broadcasting from Huntsville, Alabama, where the Davidson Center is. It's one of the 3 places that NASA has locations for launches. They do not anymore, but they used to launch rockets from right here. And what's funny is I'm from Cape Canaveral, where they launched the shuttles. So for me, space has just been like a step away. This is just, you pop on a plane and boom, you're in Mars. But I digress. So the fun fact is I'm broadcasting this from Huntsville, Alabama. But you guys in Haleyville, hey, y'all set a precedent. You set a standard. You were way ahead of your time because you were the first ones to officially dial 911 in the US and make a successful connection. Just checking in for a quick ad break. And this is not sponsored by, well, really anyone. However, it is sponsored by moi. And so I would love it if you could support me by simply subscribing and interacting, if I could even ask that much. But simply hit the button that says subscribe and it will be your free good deed of the day. It will help me grow. It will help me with this school project I'm currently doing. And I also would like to ask, if you like the video, like it, and if you don't, tell me why in the comments. There's lots of ways to get a hold of me. I have them all listed down below in the links. If you're listening on the podcast, it should also be in the description. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for anybody who wants to help invest in my career endeavors. I've been behind the studio desk several times in different capacities, and this is really where my passion is. So I'm trying to actually make it happen. And so if you have the means to financially contribute, I will have that down below as well. And if you cannot, don't feel bad at all. Just feel bad if you don't subscribe. It really was more of a, not really a publicity stunt, but a demonstration to show people how it can work. And very Steve Jobs, rest in peace style, very boom, boom. What they did is they had the Alabama Speaker of the House at the time call U.S. Representative Tom Belville. And so she was able to place the call. He could answer it. They saw no time delay. It was an awesome, exciting moment. As wonderful as that was, and as jazzed as everybody was, the facts are very clear and simple. The end of 1976, which we were talking about 67, so 9 years later, 17 of the population could use 911 services. But that's it. Then we go to 1979, which is just 3 years later, and we pop up almost 10%. We pop up to 26% of the population being able to use it. And then today is what boggles my mind. You would think, with technology and the way everything is, it would be obviously 100 or more percent, right? But no, only 85% of the U.S. population has access to 911 technology. And when you think about that, it's quite humbling. It's amazing to think, I have this phone, or I have whatever it is, to completely get to dispatch immediately, get my problem resolved, no problem. But you've got to think of that 15% that doesn't. So just a little something to think about in your day to be grateful for. There's always little things that we forget about. So in 1973, which was 3 years before we were at the 17%, 4.3 million emergency calls were placed. Whoa, a lot of numbers. All right. So in 1973, 4.3 million 911 emergency calls were placed. And that was only between the months of January through July. So that's just a little more than half the year. 4 million. And then when summer hit, you've got that July, August, summer, there were 20,000 calls per day. 20,000 calls per day in the summer. And so it made it really necessary to have dispatchers that were knowledgeable and good. And it's such a hard job. I mean, it used to be, if you wanted to be a dispatcher, you had to be able to read and write and have a pulse. But these days, you have to know so much. You have to have the beautiful human art of keeping someone feeling safe. You have to keep them calm while giving them informative information that they must follow, otherwise maybe life or death could be involved, you know, and they're really unsung heroes. So when you see our military and we thank them, and when we see the president, the government, we thank them, make sure you're thanking your first responders too, because they really don't get the praise they need. They go through so much training, they care so much, and each day must be so different. One day might be a little kid prank calling, and they just have to deal with that and not tie up the line. And the next day it could be 6 accidents where people's lives are on the lines and they have to triage everything by themselves, know who to contact and know what to say to these people. And so, thank you. If you're a first responder, if you are even a dispatcher, I don't mean just the first responders, I mean the people picking up the phone saying, 911, what is your emergency? Thank you. Thank you for being a dispatcher. Thank you for the lives that you have saved. And even if the life was not saved, thank you for the effort that I know you put into that. We really appreciate it, and we just don't say that enough. So, kind of went on that little rabbit trail, but I felt like it was really important. And so it kind of brings us to, what are we looking at today? What are we looking at as far as progress and innovation and sort of the Epcot part of Disney World, you know? And really it started in the 1990s with mobile phones. Of course, it's going to make it easier and make it better for access, more people to access the ability to use the 911 service. And then with that cell phone advancement came the opportunity to do text for 911. I know they've put that out in different forms and functions because people will take advantage of it. So please don't. If you are being peer pressured to take advantage of it, just don't. These are real people and real people's lives on the line. And so what happened was there was the ability and actually an act enacted that said that when you placed a call to 911, the carrier, the telephone carrier, so say AT&T, shout out again AT&T, they would have to disclose the caller ID information and the location information to the best of their abilities. Normally, we see this as an invasion of privacy, but here's an example of where it's really good and how it can save your life, really. So I know people worry about it, and I know bad things happen because of it, but next time you think about sharing your location, be mindful of whom you share it to, but also remember that it really could save you. The act was called the Communications Public Safety Act of 1999, and I can't believe how far away now that is becoming in our rearview mirror of America. So where are we going from here? Well, there's the Internet of Things, technology, advancements. I know some of you have smartphones where, depending on the model or the make, you can click on a certain button a certain length of time or multiple times. If you don't know that about your device, call your phone manufacturer, look online, look up a YouTube video. Make sure you know what to do in a time of crisis, because none of us are above it. You know, someone once told me the greatest equalizer in a day is that a day is 24 hours. You can't buy more hours. And crisis is kind of the same way. Yeah, some people can buy bodyguards, and some people can use lots of expensive technology and security risks, but you never know. Crisis could be just around the corner, and this could be just what you needed to hear today, and just what you needed to share with a friend. Okay, well, that about wraps it up. Don't forget your homework. You're going to share this with one person. You're going to tell them about it. You're going to show them the video. You do something, and you're going to let me know what they thought was most interesting, what you thought was most interesting. Did I say something incorrect? If I did, call me on it. Call me on it. If you leave a comment, you will be entered into getting featured on next week's episode. Now, you won't even just be featured. You are going to be in the running for a special prize. I can't tell you details yet, but I'm going to drop some hints along the way. So don't worry, even if your comment is small or long or whatever it is, you're not going to get looked over, I promise. I'll respond to as many as I possibly can. And if you're over on the podcast, come on over to YouTube and comment for me. Subscribe, like if you like, and that's enough for me, your resident peanut gallery, I suppose. Stay tuned for next week when we're going to talk about the Mad Hatter. Yes, that favorite Alice in Wonderland character had some really rough beginnings. So that's what we're going to talk about. Do your research, come prepared, and let's explore it together. All right, well, it's time to let the past be the past. Respect 911, thank a dispatcher, and go play today. Have fun. Bye, guys.